What you're about to see is real footage from a 2-week experiment that I did to learn Thai in Thailand with my friend Jan almost 10 years ago. I went from knowing zero Thai, I couldn't even count from 1 to 10, to having a 25-minute conversation entirely in Thai in just 14 days. And I'm going to show you exactly how I did it, step by step, day by day. So this is not intended to be clickbait or some miracle method that sounds too good to be true. This is just what I did and how far I got in 2 weeks, learning a very hard tonal language in a foreign country with my iPhone rolling every single day. And at one point I had to drink bird saliva too, which I'll show you, but more on that a little bit later. So first, before we start, a quick reality check. What's the point of this? Why learn a language in 14 days? Surely this is just some kind of publicity stunt. Well, here's the thing. I've spent decades learning languages. I've studied 10 languages to varying degrees. Some of them I'm highly fluent in, others I've quite literally forgotten. I've also written multiple books on language learning, and in every case, I've learned my languages slowly over time, which, spoiler alert, is by far the best way to learn a language. I do not think you should set out to learn a language in 14 days. But I also think that what a lot of people get wrong with language learning, people who stagnate, spend years without seeing much progress, is they don't bring enough intensity, focus, and intentionality to the process. It's something they do for 15 minutes on the bus or for an hour at the weekend. But really, to learn a language well, you've got to bring a degree of focus and intensity to the project over a sustained period of time. And that's what I think you can learn from this experiment that I'm going to show you here, the intentionality and the focus that we bring to the project. So what were we able to actually do after 14 days? Look, it's pretty simple stuff. We were able to order food, we were able to navigate around Bangkok, get haircuts. It's about functional communication, not fluency. We're not discussing philosophy here. And yes, I made a whole bunch of very embarrassing mistakes. So I break this project down into 4 pillars. The first was intensive instruction. And before going to Thailand, I arranged to have 20 hours of instruction. So every day, every single morning, weekdays, I would go to a language school and I would have 2 hours one-to-one with a Thai teacher. And I did this because I knew that, sure, you could learn this stuff from a textbook, but I knew that I wanted the discipline and the structure. So every morning at 9 a.m., I would go to the school and I would have that lesson. And that ensured that it gave me input every single day. Really, like 2 hours of instructional input, that you can't really take much more in than that in any one day. And so I arranged that in advance because I knew that I would need that as the backbone of the learning. So in total, it was 20 hours of instruction. The second pillar was very systematic organization. I was not randomly studying. I was learning from my teacher and then I was practicing in a very deliberate way, which you'll see a bit later. The third pillar was output-focused practice, meaning that I was focused on speaking right from the beginning. Now, if you know the story learning method, you know this is quite different to what I usually do and what I usually teach. Like I say, this project was a bit different, but I knew that if I wanted to be able to speak Thai to some level within 14 days, I was going to have to practice and be speaking the whole time. So in this project, I was speaking from day one. The fourth pillar was expert intervention. And this came from a couple of places, both my teacher, but also our friend Stujay, who lived in Bangkok. They were able to notice bad habits that were forming early on and stop them dead. And there were also specific tools that I used for this project. So first of all is the materials itself. We all need to learn from something. You can use a textbook or a course. In my case, it was my teacher. I asked for a 2-week curriculum for beginner Thai, and that's what she gave me. So that's what I was learning from. Next was language partners. Now, in my case, I was speaking a lot with my teacher, so I got lots of language practice. Jan was finding language partners on italki and getting daily practice with them. But the important thing is that we were getting that speaking practice daily. Next up was organization. So how am I organizing my learning? And I did 2 very simple things. I had a notebook where I'd write stuff down, and then I would put all of that onto digital flashcards, which acted as both a way to store and record the things I was learning and also a little way to practice. These days, what I do is I have worksheets that I can write grammar and vocabulary that I want to remember, and I've included a link in the description where you can download a copy of that for free. One of the first things I sorted out on the trip before tutors, vocabulary lists, or anything like that was internet, because trying to get around Bangkok in a language that I barely spoke without any data, that would have been a nightmare. And so the first thing I did when I got to the airport was go and buy one of those little SIM cards, But these days I use a brilliant little app called Saily. It's a travel eSIM from Nord Security that gives you instant mobile data in over 180 countries, and Nord were kind enough to sponsor this video. Now, this is really, really great because you don't actually need any physical SIM cards. You don't need to find that airport kiosk when you just got out of the plane. There's no hunting around for Wi-Fi. You just download the Saily app before you leave. You pick your destination, follow a few quick steps to install it, and if you use my code Olly Richards at checkout, all one word, you get a 15% discount. And there you go, you're instantly connected when you land. You can use this to call taxis, check directions, translate signs, even message your language tutor. That's a good idea for you. It saves you time and stress, and probably saves you a few arguments over tuk-tuk fees as well if you're in Bangkok. Saily are the sponsor of this video and have given me an exclusive 15% discount just for you. So if you're the kind of person that likes to travel, if you're planning any kind of immersion trip, sort out your internet before you go. It's one of those tools that you really don't want to have to be thinking about, especially that moment when you really, really need it, and nothing kills your momentum like getting lost with no signal. So don't wait until you're standing in the middle of a city that you can't pronounce, wondering how to get to your hotel. Rather, stay connected and safe with Saily eSIM. Link in the description, and don't forget to use the code Olly Richards for a 15% discount. So for the first few days, I was laying the foundation of the project. I had my 2-hour language lessons in the morning, and I asked for them to be entirely in Thai. I didn't want any English. The odd word for translation is okay, but basically we were operating in Thai right from the beginning. I then set myself the job of trying to learn 30 to 40 core words every single day. And I would do this by taking the words and phrases that I'd written in my notebook during the lesson, taking them out, deciding which ones were the most important, putting them into my flashcards, and then learning those with my flashcards. And I would do that like all day long. When I was on the bus, walking down the street, I was just doing a lot of flashcards. Now, 30 to 40 words a day, or often phrases in this case, that's a lot. That's too much in normal circumstances. But right at the beginning, when you're learning a new language, these basic words are really important, and they're also fairly easy to learn because you see them coming up over and over and over and over and over. And so I wanted to be quite aggressive, not least because I only had 14 days. So it was really a job of learning as much vocabulary as possible. And again, if you want some help doing this, I've got a worksheet in the video description that helps you organize all of these things. Being in the country was helpful because I was hearing this stuff come up. I'd be trying to learn it, and then I'd hear someone say it on the metro, which again is a big help. Most importantly though, in the evening, I would do 1 hour of revision. This makes all the difference, because if you can learn in the morning, study in the morning, and then come back in the evening and do another hour, it just consolidates everything you're learning so much because your brain just revisits it. Often just coming back to revisit the thing you've learned that morning makes all the difference. So we were learning intensively, but in the afternoon and evening, we were going out around Bangkok, having conversations, trying to practice. I remember Jan got a haircut and had a full conversation in Thai with the barber after just learning like 150 words.
It's actually really cool to see that how many words that you can learn, or how many things that you are able to say in a language without that hasn't had complex grammar like Thai.
This next step is really important because it can make the difference between you learning to sound like a local, or if you get it wrong, learning to sound like a tourist for the rest of your life. And we went round to the house of Stude Raj, who is an expert language learner, learned Thai to a high level as a foreigner. And he sat down and we had a bit of a conversation in Thai, and he caught all kinds of mistakes that we were making. In my case, because I already spoke Cantonese, he was able to see that I was projecting my Cantonese onto Thai, something that's called interference, and he helped me kind of uninterfere my Thai and see clearly what mistakes I was making. I remember Jan telling a story about constipation when he meant to say he couldn't think. The danger of tones.
คิดไม่ออก I can't think of something. คิดไม่ออก literally means I can't push a crap out.
So overall, week one was a lot like a fire hose. We just had so much coming at us, a whole flood of experiences. And getting to the end of week one, it's normal that your brain is very, very tired and you are a little bit all over the place. And so going into week two, I did a system overhaul. I sat down on Sunday night and I remember going through my notebook, which was pretty full by this point, and just consolidating everything, asking what is important here? What do I really need to know? And I would take these notes and I would consolidate them into flashcards. Now, I always use flashcards in full sentences because full sentences is counterintuitive. They are easier to remember than single words, because single words are just like a unit of sound. But a complete phrase has lots of words you already know in it, which makes it easier to remember any new words. I would set up my flashcards in what's called a reverse direction. So there are two ways to use flashcards. You can set them up so that you see the target language first and you have to remember what that means in English. Or you can swap it round and you can display the English first, and then you have to remember how to say that English phrase in the target language. And that's how I did it. Now, this is harder for obvious reasons, but the reason I do it is because, you know, when you're speaking, it's a process of thinking what you want to say and then remembering how to say it. And so I want to use my flashcards to help me practice that, because even though it's harder, it makes it so that when you actually get to speaking, you're more used to recalling the language that you need. So I'm practicing phrases in Thai by showing the English first that prompts me to try and remember what the Thai is. And again, there's always full sentences, not isolated words. And I'm going around Bangkok using these flashcards over and over and over. That is what is helping me learn and memorize these phrases. But the really important thing here is the consolidation of it, because I remember having vocabulary everywhere. I'd have stuff written down on the back of my hand, random bits of paper, worksheets. And so it's very, very helpful to sit down from time to time and actually say, right, let's take stock of all of this. What's important? What do I want to learn? And then intentionally choosing the stuff that you actually want to learn. I also remember around that time in the morning, walking to this, I would take the subway or the SkyTrain and then walk to school. It was about a half an hour journey. And that whole time I'd be walking down the street just like talking to myself in random basic Thai. I must have looked like an absolute nutcase.
As I'm walking to school, one of the things that I'm doing is talking to myself in Thai, which makes me look like a crazy guy, but like speaking, you know, speaking, gotta find a way to speak. ผมไปเรียนภาษาไทยครับ
Now, towards the end of the second week, it became clear that we had enough vocabulary at this point. What we needed to do was just practice it. And so we would start to get as many practice opportunities as we can. With my teacher, instead of having a lesson inside the classroom, we would actually kind of walk down the street and she would give me this task to go and order some tea from the local tea stall or whatever it may be. And then afterwards, myself and Yan, we would just go out and try and do as many daily things in Thai as possible and really push ourselves to use the stuff that we've been learning. I remember Yan was going to get like a daily massage, the PG kind. And but it was very useful because you're in a situation, you're kind of lying down for an hour and you're able to speak Thai for that whole hour. And of course you don't understand a whole bunch, but it's a targeted opportunity.
So just been for a massage, and I was interested in what you were saying, Jan, about massage being one of the best ways to practice speaking, right?
And this is a very useful thing to try to do when you're trying to practice a language. Ask yourself, what situations can I put myself in where I can naturally use that language? Because you'll be amazed how much more practice you can get. I also had it in my mind that I wanted to try this Eastern delicacy called bird saliva. Now, apparently it gives you superpowers, so I went off and I ordered that bird saliva entirely in Thai.
How does it look like? It looks like bird saliva.
It's a liquid, or?
It's a liquid, yeah, with saliva.
What does it taste like? You finish it all at once.
It's actually really good. It's quite sweet because it gets a lot of natural sweetness from rock sugar. You just gotta like not think about what it is that you're actually drinking. But it's really good, and apparently it's going to turn me into some kind of superhero.
And then right at the end of the 14 days, I sat down with my teacher and I set up the camera and we recorded an entire conversation in Thai. Here's a little excerpt.
10 ภาษา
10 ภาษา
10 ภาษาไม่อะไรเก่ง for example เช่นภาษาไทยไม่เก่งแต่พูดนิดหน่อยได้พูดได้นิดหน่อยก็เลยคิดว่าพูดได้
ใช่พูดได้
That's where I got to after 14 days. And look, I've got to say, I was proud of what I did in that time. I was completely brain dead and tired from all the work. But I was proud to be able to go from not speaking a single word of Thai to having a 25-minute conversation with my tutor. I was proud of what I did. Now, it should be obvious that I was very, very far from, I wasn't even close to being conversationally fluent in that time. I couldn't read or write. My vocabulary was extremely limited. And obviously in the recording, you can watch the full 25-minute conversation with the teacher. I'll link it up here. We were also largely in this conversation going over things that we had spoken about in the class. But I don't want to diminish it because I think it's extremely useful to realize just how much you can learn in a short space of time if you really develop this focus. Like I said at the beginning of this video, where a lot of language learners go wrong is they just don't bring enough urgency and focus into their learning. If they just brought more focus, whether that's through learning vocabulary more intentionally, through having an evening revision routine of actually doing it every day rather than taking weeks off, you'd find that you would learn so much faster. So I was still really a complete beginner, but I know for sure that if I had kept this up, this level of intensity, if I'd done an immersion program, like many people do, if I'd kept doing what I was doing, I would be very, very confident and certainly highly fluent in Thai within about 12 months. So here's what happened next. On day 15, I caught a plane back to the UK and I decided that I wanted to keep up my Thai. And so I arranged to have a lesson a week with my teacher on Skype. I also started to learn to read and write the alphabet, and I kept that up for a while. What I found was after about 3 months, even with that weekly lesson and the learning to read and write, I had regressed quite a lot. I'd forgotten a huge amount of what I had learned in Thailand. And the reason is quite simply, if you learn quickly, you also forget quickly. I've proven to myself that you can learn a hell of a lot in a short period of time. But if you want that to actually be a foundation that sticks, you've got to keep learning. In my case, it simply wasn't enough to keep it up. So these intensive periods create momentum, but it's only when you integrate the language into your lifestyle that you can actually sustain it. Whatever method you use at the beginning, it really doesn't matter unless you keep it up. Your language needs to be part of your lifestyle. So how do you keep the momentum going? What actually works for maintenance is this. First of all, having a goal. You need to know why you're learning, and having something like a trip to go on, an exam, or whatever it may be. Having some kind of goal moves your language project outside of the kind of routine or monotony of the daily study towards, okay, now I know what I'm working towards. You also need to make it part of your lifestyle. Whenever you've got a free minute, whether you're watching a YouTube video or reading a book, your new language needs to be your default choice. And having something like a no English rule whenever you're outside work can be very, very helpful for this. For any aspiring polyglots out there, focusing on one language at a time is also crucial. You don't want to split your attention between multiple languages until you've reached at least a strong intermediate level of fluency, because if not, again, you're just splitting your focus. And unfortunately, I made all of these mistakes with my Thai. When I got back to the UK, I didn't have a goal. I didn't really integrate it into my lifestyle. I was learning other languages at the same time, and during the day when I had a bit of free time, I wasn't using it to learn Thai. It really is those little micro moments that can make the difference between you going on to become fluent in a language or letting it slip away. And these days I use a very specific 15-minute daily routine that fits into even the busiest schedule, and you can find out exactly how this routine works in this video right over here.